Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavatir uttama-shloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki momagnanatimirandasya gnananjana-shalakaya chakshurun militam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamsta He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Okay. Hare Krishna Dandavata. Okay, so we're going to continue with Canto 1, Chapter 4, Verse 5, Verse 6, I think. One second. Yeah, Verse 6. Okay. Katam alakshita pauraihi samprapta kurujangalaन् unmatta mukha jadavad vicharan gajasahvaye. How was he, Srila Sukadeva, the son of Vyasadeva, recognized by the citizens when he entered the city of Hastinapura, now Delhi, after wandering in the provinces of Kuru and Jangala, appearing like a madman, dumb and retarded? So here, Saunaka Muni is asking Suta Goswami about. So we discussed how Sukadeva Goswami was he was completely liberated state, right? He was completely in a liberated state, and how he did not make any distinction on the bodily platform between male and female. And then he's further asking, saying that, okay, how was he recognized by the citizens? So was he recognized? If so, was he honored? If, so those kind of details. So here, Srila Prabhupada actually, in the purport says, okay, Hastinapura, why? Because it was first established by King Hasti. So this is information. Goswami Sukadeva, after leaving his paternal home, was roaming like a madman, and therefore it was very difficult for the citizens to recognize him in his exalted position. A sage is not therefore recognized by sight, but by hearing. One should approach a sadhu or great sage not to see, but to hear him. If one is not prepared to hear the words of a sadhu, there is no profit. So very clearly, the importance of Shravanam and how we recognize a sadhu not by looks, but by what he speaks. Nowadays, people, a lot of people, they dress themselves like a sadhu, but they absolutely don't speak like a sadhu. And who is a sadhu? Sadhu is the one who cuts our material attachments. Sadhu is not a one who simply smiles at people, right? And says, okay, you can do anything you want. You can fall into the ditch. No problem. Be happy. That is not a sadhu. Sadhu shows the way, the proper way as per Shastra, and he is not worried about his own reputation. He just wants to give the message as it is, and he wants to help people to cut their material attachments. That is the work of a sadhu, irrespective of how he appears. So here, Sukadeva Goswami was appearing like a madman. Actually, in Bhagavatam, we see many instances. Yudhishthira Maharaj, at the end of his life, he became like this. This state is called Avaduta. They don't really care about anything around them, right? Rishabh Dev. So many devotees actually at the end of their lives, they got into this mode. But Sukadeva Goswami, because he was from the beginning only liberated, so he was roaming like a madman. Madman means they're not like, neatly dressed or hair combed or, like, and also he was anyway walking around naked. So people would think that he's a madman, right? And he did not really care because he did not have external consciousness. It's not about, having external consciousness and then not getting affected by these things. I mean, these people don't have external consciousness. What does it mean? Which means that things around them are just happening incidental, but their complete focus concentration is on the Supreme. So their consciousness doesn't get impacted, contaminated by external material situations. Right? We can just imagine how exalted this state is. In the process of bhakti, as we make progress, there's one state, I don't remember which one, whether it is Ruchi or Asakti. We are in the stage called Anartha Nivritti. In this stage, what happens is we are trying to focus on Krishna, our mind gets distracted to material things, right? Naturally, like it happens during chanting. But in that stage that I was talking about, slightly advanced stage, what happens is mind has to think about some material things for whatever, like doing some material things. But mind is so absorbed in Krishna that it automatically switches back from material to Krishna. So reverse of our current state. And it's, just imagine how beautiful that state will be, wherein, all the time we are just in Krishna consciousness. And so these great sages are all that platform where they don't just get affected by anything material around them. So we have to identify these sadhus by Shravanam. When we hear from them, then we'll know, oh, so much of bhakti they have, so much of love they have for Krishna. And Prabhupada is making another important statement. He did not satisfy the whims of ordinary citizens. Nowadays, it has become a fashion to speak to satisfy the audience. So Prabhupada is saying, sadhu's work is not to satisfy the audience. Sadhu's work is to unsettle the audience, right? Unsettle the audience, not make them comfortable. So, which is why real sadhus are not, Prabhupada used to say, right? Even our preaching efforts are not recognized by people because we are very strong. We are not, no compromise in our message. Today, unfortunately, in ISKCON, this mood is not being maintained. Very few people who are trying to maintain that mood, and they always get opposed by people within ISKCON only. Anyway, this is Prabhupada's mood. Specifically, this is my Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Bhakti Vikas Maharaj's mood, and this has to be our mood also, because that will what does actually take us to Krishna very easily without much distractions and trouble. Okay. Katham va pandave yasya rajarshirmunina saha samvada samabhutata yatraisha satvati shrutihi. How did it so happen that King Parikshit met this great sage, making it possible for this great transcendental essence of the Vedas, Bhagavatam, to be sung to him? The Bhagavatam is the essence of Vedas. So if somebody asks saying that, are we reading Vedas? Yes, we are reading Vedas. We are actually reading the essence of Vedas. which is even more better than reading all the Vedas, because reading all the Vedas, if you don't get to the essence, then it's simply a waste of time. And which is what happens to most people. They get stuck with karma kanda, trying to, elevate themselves to heavenly planets, but they don't get to the ultimate goal of Vedas, which is, Krishna says, Vedascha sarver ahamevo vedyaha. The goal of Vedas is to know Krishna, but they don't come to that because they get distracted at different stages by different things that is there, that is given in the Vedas. But we are very fortunate because we've come to the essence, Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. And sometimes it's also called Shuka Samhita, Prabhupada is saying. Sagodahana matram hi griheshu grahamedhinam avekshate mahabhagas tirthi kurvamstad ashramam. He, Sukadeva Goswami, was accustomed to stay at the door of a householder only long enough for a cow to be milked. And he did this just to sanctify the residence. So here Prabhupada is saying he was not accustomed. He was not accustomed to stay at any householder's residence for more than half an hour. And he would just take alms from the fortunate householder. That was to sanctify the residence of his by his auspicious presence. This is not for his own material benefit or because he doesn't have food. No, Prabhupada is saying that, those in the renounced order of life and dedicated to the mission of preaching the message of God, it should learn that they have no business with householders, save and accept them to enlighten them in transcendental knowledge. So sadhus should not become dependent on grihasthas. They are dependent on the Supreme Lord. They come to house of grihasthas just to enlighten them in spiritual transcendental knowledge. And such asking for alms should be for the purpose of sanctifying his home. So as, for all of us as sadhakas, we should always find opportunities to invite devotees, exalted devotees, sadhus, sannyasis home, serve them nicely, because it will sanctify the home. Right? And it's so powerful. 4 things about a sadhu are powerful, and one of them is dust from his lotus feet, which means that his presence, is so empowering, so purifying. So we should do that. Otherwise, actually, the householder, he is not entitled to be called a householder if he doesn't invite sadhus and serves them. So it is that's why Prabhupada says elsewhere, saying that people who are rich, they will put a board in front of their houses, beware of dog. So how will sadhus enter their houses? So it's better those poor people whose doors are always open for sadhus, because then sadhus will come and sanctify them and bless them so that they can become devotees. So this is very, very important. Both qualities of sadhus and qualities of householders are highlighted here. Yeah, and of course, nowadays all these things happen. One who is in the renounced order of life should not be allured by glamour of householders' worldly positions, and thus become subservient to worldly men. For one who is in the renounced order of life, this is much more dangerous than drinking poison and committing suicide. Extreme. Become subservient, meaning just agreeing to whatever householders say, their whims, or whatever you want to do, you do. Sannyasi should not be like that, because that is more dangerous than drinking poison and committing suicide. That is why in this Kali Yuga, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, only very few people should become sannyasis, because it's a very tall order and it's very difficult to maintain these vows in Kali Yuga especially, right? So we should really, honor and respect immensely those few devotees who are on that platform and practicing, Krishna consciousness as sannyasis, exalted souls, great souls. Abhimanyu sutam suta prahur bhagavatottamam tasya janma mahascharyam karmani cha grinihinaha. Actually, here Saunaka Rishi he's trying to understand the qualification of the speaker and the hearer both, because actually Bhagavatam is spoken between qualified speaker and qualified hearers. So qualification of speaker is he should be authentic presenting the message as it is, not living on Bhagavatam for survival, must be a real sadhu. So, and it's always purifying and inspiring to know about such devotees, right? So when some visiting preacher comes, then we want to hear about his, how he's serving the Lord, etc., which purifies us. It's glorifying the devotee and purifying us. And also the hearers have to be sincere, serious, not want to be cheated. So many qualities are given about the hearers as well. So, and here there are two exalted devotees actually. One achieved perfection by Kirtanam, which is Sukadeva Goswami. The other achieved perfection by Shravanam, which is Parikshit Maharaj. And Saunaka Rishi knows this. So he is asking Suta Goswami to glorify both these, and he's asking very specific questions. So here he is questioning about Maharaj Parikshit. He said, it is said that Maharaj Parikshit is a great first-class devotee of the Lord, and that his birth and activities are all wonderful. Please tell us about him. Right? So we should be very curious to know about these, great devotees. Because we will talk about this few in the future, how his birth happened, his activities, how he, took care of Kali when Kali entered, and how he completely surrendered. So his birth, activities, death, all the three of them were glorious, because he was a great devotee. So and that is why he is asking, saying that you please tell us about him. So Samrat Kasya Vaheto Pandu Nammanavardhanah Prayopavishto Gangayam Anadrityadhirat Shriyam. He was a great emperor and possessed all the opulences of his acquired kingdom. He was so exalted that he was increasing the prestige of the Pandu dynasty. Why did he give up everything to sit down on the bank of the Ganges and fast until death? So here he's asking, saying that he had everything. Normally people give up things when life is frustrating, nothing is happening, then people renounce traditionally, as in, like incomplete sadhu. Just because of frustration, people renounce. But here he's asking, saying that no, he didn't have any problem at all. He possessed all opulences. He was a great emperor. He also increased the prestige of Pandu dynasty, which means that all his activities are also glorious. So then why did he give up everything to go and sit in the, on the bank of Ganges and fast until death? There must be a very strong reason why he must have done that. So Prabhupada is saying there was nothing undesirable in his opulence and administration. Then why should he give up all these favorable circumstances? People don't want to give up favorable circumstances, right? Most people do bhakti with the intention of improving their favorable circumstances. But actually bhakti means pleasing the Lord irrespective of whether the situation is favorable or unfavorable. Actually, for a devotee, there's nothing like an unfavorable situation, because Krishna personally takes care of the devotee. So every situation is glorious, is favorable, is auspicious for a devotee. So, but how come? Why did Parikshit Maharaj give up all this? So that is the curiosity. Namanti yat pada niketam atmana Shivaya haniya dhanani shatravaha Katam savira shriyamanga dustyajam Yuvai shatot srashtum aho sahasubhi. He was such a great emperor that all his enemies would come and bow down at his feet and surrender all their wealth for their own benefit. He was full of youth and strength, and he possessed kingly opulences that were difficult to give up. Why did he want to give up everything, including his life? Yeah, so similar. शिवाय लोकस्य भवाय भूतये य उत्तमश्लोकपरायणा जनाः जीवन्ति नात्मार्थमसौ पराश्रयं मुमोच निर्विद्य कुतः कलेवरम्. Those who are devoted to the cause of the personality of Godhead, devoted to the cause, meaning whatever the Lord wants from them, devoted to that, live only for the welfare, development, and happiness of others. They do not live for any selfish interest. So even though the emperor Parikshit was free from all attachment to worldly possessions, how could he give up his mortal body, which was a shelter for others? So this is a very interesting question. So Saunaka Muni here is saying, what is the quality that is there in such great devotees who are devoted to the cause of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? What do they live for? They live only for welfare, development, and happiness of others. Welfare, development, and happiness. They do not live for any selfish interest. So they don't have any reason for themselves to live. So here he's asking, previous questions answer, he's giving his answer, that why did he give up all that? Because, I mean, he did not actually be attached, he was not attached to any of his worldly possessions. So these great souls, like I said, like Sukadeva Goswami, Maharaj Parikshit also, he had all the opulences. Sukadeva Goswami externally didn't seem like he had any material opulence, but he was still unattached to his whole situation. Maharaj Parikshit had everything, still he was unattached. He was not attached to worldly possessions. So he was free from all attachment. See how exalted position it is. That when we have everything and we are not attached to anything. And nowadays people have so much, but they're so greedy. They want more, more, more. Is there any limit to our wants? Our needs are very less. Our wants have no limit at all. Right? And people have, but they want still more, more, more. Maharaj Parikshit was not like that. He was very happy, whatever Krishna has given, using everything in Krishna's service, and he was not attached to his worldly possessions at all. Nothing about protecting it, increasing it, nothing. But interestingly here, Saunaka Muni is asking, okay, he was anyway free from all attachments. But what about his mortal body? Why did he want to give up his mortal body? Why? Because it was a shelter for others. See, this mortal body, though it is temporary, it is Sharira Vyadi Mandira, temple of misery. But it is the vehicle, right? And without this vehicle, we cannot function in this material world. And because he was a pure devotee and he was always working for the welfare, development, and happiness of others, and that working happens through the mortal body, Saunaka is asking, why did he want to give up his mortal body? Because anyway, it was not for his selfish interest at all. That body was also being used completely for the service of others. Now, why did he want to give up? Why did he want to give up doing good for others also? He was anyway not attached to his possessions. So he was already selfless. Right? And being selfless, he was using his mortal body for serving others. Why did he want to give up that also? Which was shelter. So this is very important actually. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that, take shelter of me. When we have to take shelter of those who are worthy of taking shelter. Right? And which means that there's some definition of who can be object of shelter, who can under whom we can take shelter. So Maharaj Parikshit was one such person who was qualified to give shelter to others. Now, such people are very few. So when he was such an exalted person that so many people dependent on him, how could he just give up his mortal body? What would happen to all of them who are depending on him? Right? So that is the question that he is being asked here. Selfishness. So Prabhupada gives insights. Selfishness, right? The most interesting thing for people in this material world. Selfishness is either self-centered or self-extended. I, me, mine. So I, me is self-centered. Mine is extended. Then mine can go up to my family, my city, my home, my city, my state, my country, my community, etc., etc. It can go on expanding, expanding, expanding. There's no limit to it, right? And so this is selfishness, inbuilt characteristic, especially in Kali Yuga. And then Prabhupada is saying king is the representative of the Supreme Lord because he's called Naradeva. And therefore the king's interest must be identical with that of the Supreme Lord. So this is also refers to anybody, or this applicable to anybody who is a leader. So father, mother, guru, administrators, whoever are leading people, showing them direction, their interest must be identical with that of the Supreme Lord, which means there should not have a separate interest separate from that of the Supreme Lord. And what is the interest of the Supreme Lord? Supreme Lord wants all living beings to be obedient to him and thereby become happy. Therefore, the king's interest is to guide all subjects back to the kingdom of God. So Prabhupada is clearly saying, what does the Supreme Lord want? He wants living beings to be happy. How do they become happy? By being obedient to him. Not by living a life of sense gratification. Not by, giving up the Lord. Not by forgetting about the Lord. By being obedient to him, people become happy. People are, I see, suddenly so many messages are coming from here, there, New Year, New Year, New Year. What is the idea of New Year? Oh, okay, old year gone, New Year, hopefully I can become happy. Right, and I saw one neighbor of mine here who normally they don't open their door till like 8:30. New Year, he took his bag and looks like he went to a gym or something. Something, right? Some New Year resolution. Why? Because they think, oh, okay, by doing this, I'm going to be happy. But people really don't know what is the secret for being happy. Secret to being happy is to become obedient to Krishna. And how do we become obedient to Krishna? First, we have to understand what Krishna wants of us. And then if we live according to it, then we become happy. Even those devotees who are in Krishna consciousness, they don't experience happiness because they're not following Krishna. That happiness then is limited to when I go to the temple, when I hear kirtan, when I do some devotional activity, I might experience some happiness. But that also if people are trying to, immerse themselves in the seva, not if they're sitting in front of the deity and then thinking about their work or something else that they're attached to. They're not going to experience happiness. That is why we keep talking about Tivra Bhakti. Tivra Bhakti means like intentionally giving up these unnecessary attachments, not intentionally developing attachments. People chant Hare Krishna on one side and they say, no, I want this apple, this new product, that new product. Intentionally, indulging in material work, material things. That's not going to give us happiness. Because then japa becomes like, because it is nama parada to have attachment to material things, even while chanting. So we will not make significant progress. But then people are happy because, okay, once in a week I come, I have the association of devotees. I am happy, I laugh, I smile, I eat nice prasadam, then I go back. 1 week again, I'm in Maya. That's not going to make us happy. So the only way we can become happy is by becoming obedient to him. So the extent to which we are obedient, that much we will be happy. Why sannyasis are so happy? Because they're completely obedient to Krishna, 100% obedient to Krishna's will. Right? So we also, yayatha mam prapadinte. To the extent we are obedient, to that extent we'll experience happiness. Okay. Tatsarvam na samachakshva prushto yaddiha kinchana manye tvam vishaye vacham snatam anyatra chandasat. We know that you are expert in the meaning of all subjects except some portions of the Vedas. And thus you can clearly explain the answers to all questions we have just put to you. So Saunaka Muni is saying, see, you are qualified, you are an expert. Right? Now what is this except some portions of the Vedas that Prabhupada explains? But because that is not relevant for, the question that I put, you can clearly explain the answers to all the questions we have just put to you. And Prabhupada in the purport, he says that there's a difference between the Vedas and the Puranas is like that between the Brahmanas and the Parivrājakas. So Brahmanas are meant to administer some fruitive sacrifices, yagna, puja, this, that, and all are mentioned in the Vedas. But the Parivrājakacharyas or learned preachers are meant to disseminate transcendental knowledge to one and all. As such, the Parivrājakacharyas are not always expert in pronouncing Vedic mantras which are practiced systematically by accent and meter by the Brahmanas who are meant for administrating Vedic rites. So those who are doing all this puja and all that, they chant these mantras in a tone, in an accent, meter, etc., etc. But Parivrajakacharyas are not experts in that, but they're experts in disseminating transcendental knowledge. So Suta Goswami was one such Parivrajacharya. So Saunaka Muni is saying it's okay. You're not a Brahmana like a Vipra, like who's going to do puja, mantra, yagna, and all that. But still, you are completely qualified to answer because you are a Parivrajacharya. You disseminate transcendental knowledge. And then for those who deride or who don't give much value to Puranas, here Prabhupada is saying there's no difference also between the Vedic mantras and what is explained in the Puranas and Itihasas. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, it is mentioned in the Madhyandina Shruti that all the Vedas, namely Sama, Atharva, Rig, Yajur, Puranas, Itihasas, Upanishads, etc., are emanations from the breathing of the Supreme Being. So it's not just the Vedas, even the Puranas and Itihasas, history like Ramayana, Mahabharata, they are also coming from the Supreme Lord itself. Jiva Goswami is saying this. The only difference is that the Vedic mantras are mostly begun with Pranava Omkara, and it requires some training to practice the metric pronunciation of the Vedic mantras. But that does not mean that Śrīmad Bhāgavatam is of less importance than Vedic mantras, because Purana, Śrīmad Bhāgavatam is one of the Puranas, and it is also emanation from the breathing of Supreme Being. So it is actually having the same status as Vedas. But most other like Gnanis normally, they don't want to come to Puranas. They are stuck with Vedas and mainly Upanishads, and that is their whole world. And they say Puranas are for less intelligent people, and we don't need this. But Puranas are actually clarifying the topics that are discussed in the Vedas for those people who want to misunderstand. And Gnanis also want to misunderstand because they want to just interpret it the way they want. So actually, if they come to Puranas, then they can actually understand the teachings of the Vedas, essence of Vedas more clearly, and especially Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, because we already read that it is the essence of all Vedas. So Prabhupada is making it clear, position of Vedas, Puranas, and also between Brahmanas and Parivrajakacharyas. Actually, in today's world, for example, if there's a Brahmana coming to do puja, etc., people pay so much of respect, this, that, and all that. But if a preacher comes, they think, he doesn't know any chanting, any mantra, so useless, right? But here it is saying it's actually the other way around. In one sense, Parivrajakacharyas are more valuable. In another sense, Brahmanas are also valuable because through these Vedic rites, at least for the less qualified people, they provide a mechanism by which they remain attached to God and God consciousness, and slowly they can come to spiritual platform. Another beautiful point Prabhupada is saying about realization, because it's comparing Brahmanas and Parivrajakacharyas, right? Simply that chanting mantras is like parrot-like chanting, meaning we by heart and we just chant, So that is parrot-like chanting, and Prabhupada is saying realization is more important than parrot-like chanting. Parivrajakacharyas are more important than Brahmanas. Because realization happens only when one engages in practice of bhakti, as follows the path given by previous acharyas. Suta Uvacha Dvapare samanuprapte tritiye yugaparyeye jata parasharad yogi vasavyam kalaya harehe. Suta Goswami said, so he starts answering. When the second millennium overlapped the third, the great sage Vyasadeva was born to Parashara in the womb of Satyavati, the daughter of Vasu. So here, it's a technicality, Prabhupada explains in the purport. There is a chronological order of the 4 millenniums. Actually, it is Satya, Dwapara, Treta, Kali. Not Satya, Treta, Dwapara, Kali. But sometimes there is overlapping. What does this overlapping mean? That Treta comes before Dwapara. During the regime of Vaivasvata Manu, there was an overlapping of the 28th round of the 4 millenniums. We are actually in the 28th round right now. We are in the 28th round of the 4 millenniums. We are in the Kali Yuga of the 28th round. And we are in the present, this is Vaivasvata Manu's regime. Okay, overlapping of the 28th round of the 4 millenniums, and the third millennium appeared prior to the second. Why? Because Lord Shri Krishna descends in this 28th round. So there was some particular alteration because of the way his leelas have to happen. So this is an exception. Satya, Treta, Dwapara, Kali in this 28th round of the 4 yugas is an exception. The order changes. That is specifically to facilitate the pastimes of Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The mother of the great sage was Satyavati and daughter of a Vasu, of the Vasu fisherman, and the father was the great Parashara Muni. So anyway, that history, those who read Mahabharata, they will know. So kadachit sarasvatya upasprushya jalam shuchihi vivikta eka asina udite ravimandale. Once upon a time, he, Vyasadeva, as the sun rose, took his morning ablution in the waters of Saraswati and sat alone to concentrate. So this is very nice. This river Saraswati is flowing in Badrikashram area of the Himalayas. Even today, though it said it's not visible. The place indicated here is Shamya Prasa in Badrikashram, where Sri Vyasadeva is residing. So he's still present. Vyasadeva is still present there. Qualified souls will get darshan of Vyasadeva there. Paravaragna sa rishihi kalena vyakta ramhasa yuga dharma vyatikaram praptam bhuvi yuge yuge. The great sage Vyasadeva saw anomalies in the duties of the millennium. This happens on the earth in different ages due to the unseen force of time. Anomalies in the duties of the millennium means Satyuga, people used to do their duties perfectly. Then Treta, Dwapara, Kali, it goes on deteriorating. So that's why here Sutta Goswami is saying this happens on earth in different ages, different times. Due to Kala, unseen influence on force of time means Kala. Influence of Kala, time, these kind of anomalies happen. The great sages like Vyasadeva are liberated souls and therefore they can see clearly past and future. So this is so amazing. So these qualified souls, they have two ways to see. One is really they will see past and future. The other is by their spiritual knowledge. How much they know about how this world is going, they can predict what will happen in the future. So thus he could see the future anomalies in Kali Yuga, and accordingly he made arrangement for the people in general so that they can execute a progressive life in this age which is full of darkness. So one has to execute progressive life, not a digressive life, or not a life which pushes us down, but a life which pushes us up, right? And for the progressive life, the system is Varnashrama Dharma. Varnashrama is the progressive life, is the system for progressive life. And in Varnashrama, obviously there are so many things. And one of the things that he does first is to split the Vedas, that he'll talk about later. The people in general in this age of Kali are too much interested in matter. Because of the ignorance, they are unable to evaluate the assets of life and be enlightened. So they are unable to evaluate the assets of life. Assets of life meaning what is really valuable, they don't understand. They think that it's only this dead matter that is an asset. What do people talk about? What I possess a home, I possess a car. Dead matter is going to get destroyed in course of time, or will not come with us, will not be of no use to us. But people are attached to those assets which actually have zero value. The real asset is spiritual knowledge, because it comes with us in our next life if at all we don't achieve perfection in this. So because they're too much attached to matter, everything, their vision is completely tinted by everything connected to matter, material possessions, material relations, material assets. So they don't really know what is the real asset and how that can be developed. And so powerful, Bhagavatam is like very, very clear. Prabhupada's purports are like just amazing. Bhautikānām ca bhāvānām shakti hrāsam ca tatkritam ashraddhadānān sattvaन् durmedhān rasitāstayushaha. Durbhagamscha janan viksha munir divyena chakshusha sarva varnashramanam yad datyau hitam amogadrik. The great sage who was fully equipped in knowledge could see through his transcendental vision the deterioration of everything material due to the influence of age. He could also see that the faithless people in general would be reduced in duration of life and would be impatient due to lack of goodness. Thus, he contemplated for the welfare of men in all statuses and orders of life. Meaning, Varnashrama, Sarva Varnashramanam, all those who are participating in Varnashrama, for their welfare, he contemplated. And Kali Yuga, great qualities of Kali Yuga. Deterioration of everything material things also will deteriorate. Prabhupada is giving in the purport how everything deteriorates in Kali Yuga. So he says duration of material body in general is reduced, which means how many years one lives is reduced, memory is reduced. Action of matter also has not much incentive, which means that if we put some effort, whatever returns we get in Kali Yuga is very less compared to what it used to be before. Prabhupada says, example, land does not produce food grains in the same proportion as it did. Cow does not give as much milk. Production of vegetables, fruits is less than before. As such, all living beings, men and animals, do not have sumptuous, nourishing food. Due to want of so many necessities of life, naturally the duration of life is reduced. Memory is short, intelligence is meager, mutual dealings are full of hypocrisy, and so on. So that is the characteristic of Kali Yuga. And more importantly, people are totally impatient. Why? Because no goodness, lack of mode of goodness. Because mostly Kali Yuga is passion and ignorance. So what should be done? Transcendentalists who are naturally devotees of the Lord, always eager to render welfare service to people in general. They are the real friends of people in general. So this is what we need to do. Not sit in our house, do our sadhana. That is good. That needs to be done because already, like previously said, that is a real asset of life that we should anyway do, but we should imbibe the mood of Srila Prabhupada, imbibe the mood of Prahlad Maharaj. That we have to go out and preach. We have to give this message to others. Right? And I keep saying either you preach through words, preach through action, preach through distributing books, preach through contributing to distribute books, somehow engage in this service. That this welfare service has to happen. Just imagine, I mean, look at the world around us. And look at our WhatsApp groups. 200, 250 people are there. People are just not interested in hearing. No, and this is something that I fail to answer. I keep questioning myself, saying that why are these people in these groups? If they don't want to hear anything, they don't want to participate in any program, what is the benefit? Neither are we putting, at least in our English groups, we're not even putting so many messages as such. What makes them just remain there passively? Like with no goal, no direction, nothing, right? Just simply wasting. Irrespective of how much ever effort we put to, give this knowledge to people, people are just reluctant. They just don't want this. So that is why this is not the work of 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 people. Everybody has to attempt. Everybody has to attempt giving this knowledge to others. Chaturhotram karma shuddham pragnanam viksha vaidikam vyatadhat yagna santatyai vedam ekam chaturvidham. He saw that the sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas were means by which people's occupations could be purified. And to simplify the process, he divided the one Veda into 4 in order to expand them among men. Because when Vedas are so huge, people will get lost what needs to be done because it gives contradictory sometimes without knowing the context of what is being recommended. It might say one thing for one person, it might say the completely opposite thing to another person. And if somebody doesn't know whom it is meant for, they will get confused. But everything that is there in the Vedas is intended for different audience for purifying their occupations. So here formerly there was only one Veda, which is Yajur. And all the divisions of sacrifices were there mentioned. But to make them more easily performable, Vyasadeva divides the Veda into 4 divisions, namely Rig, Yajur, Sama, Atharva. And then there are also Puranas, Mahabharata, Itihas, which are called as the Samhitas, which are called as the 5th Veda. So this whole process of Yagna, which is what is being talked about here, which is given in the Dhatu Hotram. Hotram means fire sacrifice, so Yagna. And in Kali Yuga, that Yagna is Sankirtana Yagna. So irrespective of what Veda, what we are following, where we are coming from, etc., we have to do Sankirtana Yagna. How do we do Sankirtana Yagna? Simply once in a week, invite all people, neighbors, etc., etc. Once in a week, invite devotees who can do Kirtan for half an hour, 45 minutes, do Aarti, give them prasadam, and that's it. Sankirtan. If you can get somebody to preach, it is good. If not, it's fine. That's all. So Kirtan, prasadam, Aarti, Kirtan, prasadam. This is Sankirtan. Sankirtan is just glorifying the Lord by chanting Hare Krishna. So you can simply do this. New Year, call people home, saying all relatives, friends, you call them. And say we'll have a small, event, half an hour, 45 minutes, we'll have Kirtan. Nobody will mind sitting in Kirtan bhajans. They'll be happy. So then do Aarti, prasadam, Sankirtana Yagna. This is the duty of a householder. Not to earn money and bank it. Earn money and distribute it for the welfare of people. Not by giving to, Anathashram, Vruddhashram and all that. For that, there are so many other people who do that. We have to give high quality charity, which is to give this Sankirtana Yagna, this transcendental knowledge to people. Rigyajusama Tharvakhya Vedas Chatvara Udhritaha Itihasa Puranam Cha Panchamo Veda Uchate. The 4 divisions of the original source of knowledge, Vedas, were made separately, but the historical facts and authentic stories mentioned in the Puranas are called the 5th Veda. Itihasa Purana, historical facts, Itihasa Purana are called the 5th Veda. So they are pretty authentic. Tatrargvedadhara Paila Tamago Jaimini Kavihi Vaishampa Vaishampayana Evaiko Nishnato Yajusam Uta. After the Vedas were divided into 4, Paila Rishi became the professor of Rig Veda, Jaimini the professor. Prabhupada is saying professor. Basically, this Muni means, or Rishi means professors only. And Vaishampayana alone became glorified by the Yajur Veda. Atharvangira Samasit Sumantur Daruno Muni Itihasa Purananam Pita Mero Maharshanaha. Sumanta Muni, Angira, who was very devotedly engaged, was interested with the Atharva Veda. My father, Romaharshana, was interested with the Puranas and historical records. Tayetar Shayo Vedam Swam Swam Vyasyan Anekadha Shishyayi Prashishyais Tachishyer Shishyai Prashishyer Tachishyer. So 3 generations. Vedas Te Shakino Bhavan. All these learned scholars in their turn rendered their interested Vedas unto their many disciples, grand disciples and great grand disciples. Shishyai, Prashishyer and Tachishyer, their disciples. And thus the respective branches of the followers of the Vedas came into being. So basically all these different followers, paramparas became established. So Prabhupada is saying, because everything is coming from Vedas, nobody can claim any knowledge as their own. all knowledge is coming from Vedas. Veda means Gnana, all knowledge is Vedas. Taiva Veda der durmedher dharyante purusharyatha evam chakara bhagavan vyasa kripanavatsalaha. That's the great sage Vyasadeva, who is very kind to the ignorant. Ignorant is Kripanavatsala, kind to the ignorant. Edited the Vedas, so they might be assimilated by less intelligent men. Edited means he reclassified them. It's already there, he just classified them and took out different sections and put them into different Vedas. He didn't like edit what was given because it is given by the Supreme Lord, and he himself is the incarnation of the Supreme Lord. And for whom? Who he is very kind to ignorant masses. Kripana. What is the difference between Kripana and Brahmana? Brahmana is one who uses life for proper, intention, like whatever it has to be used for. Kripana is one, we say Kripana is miser. Who is a miser? Who has a human form of life and is wasting it. Who has money but who is not using it. Who has knowledge but who is not sharing it. All of these are Kripanas. So he's Kripana Vatsala. For such Kripanas, he shows kindness. How? By giving the path of perfection, by splitting the Veda. And in such a way that so they might be assimilated by less intelligent men. So these Vedas can only be learned by Brahmanas. There is qualification. There's a aspect of qualification. Who can read the Vedas? Only Brahmanas, Dvijas, who are born with that, fine brain tissues that can help them understand Vedas. And what is their qualification? They are generally not attached materially. They are attached to Brahman, Brahma Jnana. But in Kali Yuga, we can't find such Brahmanas. So who are these less intelligent men? Striyo Vaishya Tata Shudra. Women, Vaishya, which is third class of men, and fourth class of men, which is Shudra. So Brahmanas and Kshatriyas are considered high class people. But Prabhupada says multiple times in various purports, saying in Kali Yuga there is no Brahmana, there is no Kshatriya. So basically the whole population is low class. So for that low class people who don't have qualification to understand Vedas, Vyasadeva split the Vedas. Okay, let's see what Prabhupada is saying. The ultimate goal of Vedic knowledge is Krishna. This personality is very rarely understood by those in the modes of passion and ignorance. Okay, this is a very important statement. So we are trying to understand Krishna, but we cannot understand Krishna if our life is running in the modes of passion and ignorance. And this is of utmost importance for devotees. Of course, for other people who are in passion and ignorance, they cannot understand Supreme Lord at all. They are not interested in knowing. But we are wanting to know the Supreme Lord because we are engaged in service, but we cannot know him unless we come to the mode of goodness. If our life is driven by mode of passion and ignorance, we cannot understand Krishna. So intentionally, we should reduce mode of passion and ignorance. What is reducing mode of passion mean? I don't have time. Running behind material things one after another like a headless chicken is mode of passion. Trying to derive some happiness out of material things, mode of passion. Ignorance is just not applying transcendental knowledge in our life. Just, like animals. Animals are in the mode of ignorance. So we should not live life like animals, nor should we live like without direction, just busy behind material things. If we are living life like this, then we cannot understand Krishna. Krishna can be understood only when we come to the mode of goodness. That is why Krishna tells Arjuna, Nistraigunya Vishya Veda, Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna. There is actually saying transcend the three modes. But before we can transcend, at least we should come from Tamoguna to Rajoguna to Sattvaguna. And then we can come to Shuddha Sattva, which is transcending. So this mode of goodness also, Satyuga, which was more goodness, then Treta reduced further, Dwapara is still further. Kali Yuga is almost nil. Mode of goodness is almost nil, Prabhupada is saying. So the kind-hearted, powerful sage Vyasadeva split the Veda. Let me just finish this. Three Shudra Dvija Bandhunam Trayina Shruti Gochara Karma Shreyasi Modhanam Shreya Evam Bhavediha Iti Bharatam Akyanam Kripaya Munina Kritam. Out of compassion, the great sage thought it wise that this would enable men to achieve the ultimate goal of life. Thus he compiled the great historical narration called Mahabharata for the low and less intelligent, which is three Vaishya, Tata, Shudra. So Dvija Bandhus, so there are Dvijas, Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas are called Dvijas. Shudras are not called Dvijas. They are, Dvija means twice born. Why, how are they twice born? Actually, if one follows Garbhadhana Samskara, they are considered twice born. If they don't have some Garbhadhana Samskara, then it is Shudra. And most of the children who parents have not followed Garbhadhana Samskara are Dvija Bandhus. They are friends of the Dvijas. Because though they are born in a Dvija family, they cannot be considered as Dvijas because they don't get the culture, spiritual, finesse, all that, right? Because that is inherently present in a Dvija. If you see a authentic son of a authentic Brahmana, you can make out, oh, this is qualified person. Because it comes, Krishna will send such souls when Garbhadhana Samskara is done. But people nowadays have no idea. Men and women come together like animals for enjoying sex, right? And that doesn't result in qualified children. So this Garbhadhana Samskara is the key, right? So here it's saying for all those people who are non-Dvijas or who are Dvija Bandhus, Vyasadeva gave this Mahabharata. And in the middle of, at the end of Mahabharata, he gave Bhagavad Gita, because people want to generally hear, like they want to stories, histories, all these interest people. So Krishna wanted to give this Bhagavad Gita, the crux of Mahabharata. When climax is coming, he gave Bhagavad Gita, saying, okay, you're interested in hearing all this, story and stuff like that. Okay, now write at the climax here Bhagavad Gita and then perfect your life. Okay, last two verses will just finish. Evam pravritta sada bhutanam shreyasi dvijaha sarvatmakenapi yada natushyad hridayan tataha. O twice born Brahmana, still his mind was not satisfied, although he engaged himself in working for the total welfare of all people. So this we'll discuss in the subsequent chapter. Nati prasida dridaya sarvasvatyastate suchau vitarkayan viviktastha idam chovacha dharmavid. Thus the sage, being dissatisfied at heart, at once began to reflect, because he knew the essence of religion, and he said within himself, okay, I think stop here. I don't know how many more verses are there. Still there are there. Okay, we'll stop here. Actually, we'll want to talk about 27 also. Yeah, so we'll stop at 26. 26. Okay. If anybody has any questions, we can discuss. No questions? Okay, what are key takeaways? I have to make you speak somehow. What are the key takeaways from today? If I'm too fast, let me know, because then the whole intent of these discussions.
One of the thing is how to identify yogis who are actual yogis.
Sadhus,
not by the looks, but by their knowledge is what we have to identify them. I think that is one of the main, especially when we are in this yuga. because what we see, most of the kaki people, they put I think many people fall for it. In fact, today we have seen that matas and gurujis, we say they are our gurujis, but at the end of the day, it's all politics that I see. I might be wrong. I'm
No,
not
no, no. It's
offending anyone
totally,
here. I'm
totally,
not.
totally,
Yeah.
totally. It's political. Most of it is
Yeah.
political. There are very few genuine sadhus in this Kali Yuga.
I think this is a great knowledge. The one of the surprising thing is this is already there in the books. It's like someone is already seeing and writing like, don't believe this, believe that kind. So
Prabhupada is like, I mean, amazing. That is why, I want all of you to dive into Prabhupada's purports. Prabhupada's purports are really revealing. They just open our eyes to this reality of the world around us.
It looks like someone is watching us and they are
Yeah.
saying it, don't do it. But these are the books written long ago, not at the present. So
Yeah.
it's really amazing, Prabhuji.
Okay, nice. Okay. Others?
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
We have to invite sannyasis to home and serve them.
Yeah.
And we should keep in mind that serving the sannyasis is for our improvement and not like they will be benefited, because sannyasis are dependent on Lord.
Okay. Okay, so it will purify the houses when we call highly qualified devotees home and serve them. Okay.
And we saw the difference between Brahmanas and
Parivrajakacharyas. Parivrajakacharyas. Yes, very nice. Okay.
So we really understand the difference between them, and in our simplest way, even we can follow this by doing kirtana at home, inviting people, and spreading the message of God.
Okay, very nice. That
is a very important thing that I learned. It was a good takeaway for me.
Okay, very nice. Very nice. Everybody should do. Actually, Bhaktivinoda Thakur said that every house should become a temple. How does it become a temple? Just by doing this once in a week. Call people, do kirtan, narthi, prasadam, and then done. Right? And if you can do, somebody can do class, it's good. Otherwise, no issues. Right? But even this is hugely purifying. Just sitting in kirtan is amazingly. Kirtan and prasadam just will change people's life. So please do that. Actually, this doesn't require us to be preachers. Anybody can do. And it doesn't have to be any raga thala, just basic. We can Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Prabhupada tune. We can just sing and sing for hours together, that tune. People will not get bored. I've seen that. It's so powerful, that tune. So we can just do that. Invite people. Don't do any class, nothing. Simply build relations. And because we are trying to practice seriously, right? When people come in touch with us and they will get infected. Prabhupada said this is the good infection. This is what is required. Not the material infection. We want spiritual infection, right? So that's a very powerful, recommendation, guidance, instruction by Acharya. So we should all try to do that, all, literally. And then you will see, you will also actually then become more enthusiastic in life about Krishna consciousness, because you're now starting to help others, right? And I've seen this in my life, when I moved from being self-centered in terms of my sadhana, my to actually giving this to others, is when I started experiencing real happiness. It doesn't matter, even if there are 5 people, 10 people, doesn't matter. Even if 1 person, doesn't matter. It gives us happiness because Krishna is pleased. Very nice. Thank you. Okay. What else? Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
It's like many other sadhu work is not satisfy the audience.
Sadhu will not speak to satisfy the audience. Very nice.
And one more thing I not fully understood. Why did Parikshit Maharaj wanted to give up? Because so many are sheltered.
Okay. So many people were depending on him. Why did he want to give up? That is the whole episode, right? He gets cursed And that is a very interesting 18th chapter, amazing 18th chapter, first canto, when we will discuss this. So he gets cursed and he had the power to retaliate. But in that one verse, Sutta Goswami says, saying that these pure devotees, irrespective of how they are treated, even if they are cursed, ill-treated, or even, if they if they are going to be get killed, still they don't retort, they don't retaliate. And suddenly, Prahlad Maharaj, Ambarish Maharaj, Prabhupada, Haridas Thakur, so many devotees come to our mind immediately when we read this statement, and Parikshit Maharaj. Right? So he simply accepted okay, this is Lord's desire. Why? Because he wants me to get out of all my attachments, material attachments. He didn't have any attachments, but he's how a pure devotee thinks, saying, I have so many material attachments, Krishna is taking me away from all this. So he sees it as direction or desire of the Lord and simply accepts it. What is the real reason? Because Krishna wanted him to become the medium for Śrīmad Bhāgavatam to be spoken. So these devotees are exalted for the fulfilling the desire of the Lord. They are ready to give up anything and everything. So that we will understand in the 18th chapter. Very deep, very beautiful chapter it is.
Thanks.
Yeah, one more point I was seeing, qualities of qualification of people in Kali Yuga. Impatience is due to lack of goodness. People are too attached to matter. They don't know what are real assets of life. They're attached to material assets. And even devotees, unless, if we are in the mode of passion and ignorance, we cannot understand Krishna. These are all what I call gems of Srila Prabhupada, which can literally change our life. And if you can, just note some of these and meditate on these, it will change our life. Just see, this one statement is so killing, literally, right? We cannot understand Krishna if you're in mode of passion and ignorance. Then that thing has to start in us, saying that how do I move to goodness? Because I want to understand Krishna, otherwise my life is wasted. Right? Then it will trigger thought process, efforts, actions. Then slowly we'll make progress. Okay. So then we'll end here. Kindly put some of these things every time. Make a note. Please have notebook again. Notebook, online notes, mobile notes, whatever it is. Note these points. So many important points are there in Prabhupada's purports, in the verses, and try to apply them in your life. That's when you're going to see a difference. Otherwise, Bhagavatam will be just storytelling, right? But it is life-changing, transforming. Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam. So the only way that can happen is when we attempt to apply these in our lives. Okay, thank you very much for your time. Here, Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhyo vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Vaishnava Jagat Guru Śrīla Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna. Hare Krishna to everybody. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, I'll disconnect.